item is public hearing, Director of Development Services regarding sign variance for a Target store located at 214 South Central Avenue. At 6A1 is motion approving sign variance based upon findings and conditions.
Thank you. Who are we going to? Are we going to Mr. Lanspain?
Yes, and I'll introduce Senior Project Manager Bob Cadillac for a brief report.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Chairman, members of the agency. Before you today is a sign variance which has been applied for by Diversified Signs of Anaheim, California, for the Target retail store at 241 South Central. You may all remember that the store opened in July of 2007, and they installed signs on all three sides of the store, east, west, and south, with the typical Target logo. Target is applying at this time for a sign variance to install 3 additional signs on the western elevation. That would be the elevation that faces the garage and faces Galleria. That's the only place they're going to be installing signs, and they're going to be installing 3 in particular. The first sign will be a pharmacy sign, and many of you have probably seen Target stores where they have the typical white pharmacy sign on the first floor. The second sign will be a additional Target name sign, which will be set into the chrome metal marquee portico over the second level door when you come in from the garage and come down from the ramp. So that will be white, lucite, and it will be backlit. Next to it will be their typical Target bullseye, red and white logo. And then the third sign will be a Target bullseye, which will be situated on the first level underneath the ramp on the left side of the main door up at about eye level. So when you're walking from the garage now, you might have noticed that you're walking on asphalt with Target logo stamped into the asphalt. And your eye will come up to that sign as you go into the store. So those 3 additional signs only on the west elevation are being applied for by the applicant. That's what needs your administrative approval.
I'd like to have the color changed to blue. Any chance of doing that?
I'm sure we could ask Member Quintero. I'm not sure that they would choose to do that.
I have a question.
Councilmember Yusefian.
Currently, there are Target signs out there, so they're still going to be there, because
Correct.
I'm looking at this, and it looks like that's exactly where they are.
Exactly.
Okay, so...
Those signs remain on the, here's my packet stapled. Those large Target signs with the Target logo underneath and the bullseye will remain on all 3 sides of that facility.
Okay.
But on the western elevation, which faces Galleria Way and is the most constrained, you will have those 3 additional signs, which say pharmacy, which will be between the first and second level of parking garage.
Okay, I see.
And the bullseye will also be there. And then as you walk down the ramp from the second level of the garage, there's the stainless steel doors and that portico that covers you. At the end of that, they're going to route that out and put in additional signage there.
Phil. I just wanted to make sure that what you see in Exhibit A on the top is the proposed new signs. The Target bullseye that is identified here as A, and then on the other side, those exist. These are more than anything else identification signage, because as you're coming from the garage, you wouldn't know just from looking at the door that it's a Target store.
Correct.
Thank you. Have any other questions or comments?
So it is a public hearing.
Yes, but I want to know whether I have any other questions or comments from my colleagues at this point.
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to open the public hearing, but these are for oral communications. We took this out of order. So.
Yes, and I did want to say that. In trying to figure out the joint meeting and the regular meeting, I mixed up my notes, and we skipped over approval of minutes as well, so we'll have to approve those 2.
You're off to a good start this year.
That's all right. It's a rainy Tuesday. It's okay. I don't have any cards on this issue.
Close.
So I'm going to close this.
Did you open this?
Yes, we did.
Oh, I'm sleeping
I've
too.
got questions from my left asking whether I opened, questions from my right asking whether I closed it. We've got some wonderful doormen up here on this.
You're welcome.
All right.
6A1.
Thank you. Mr. City Clerk.
Yes.
I moved it, he seconded.
Agency members Najarian?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Yusefian? Aye. Chairman Draymond?
Yes. All right. Thank you. Let's go back to the approval of minutes.
Is there a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Second.
Minutes are approved. And the second item that we skipped?
That is oral communication, and discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Members of the redevelopment agency may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The matter may be referred to staff through the executive director for investigation and report.
Okay, thank you. I have 2 cards. The first is from Herbert Milano.
Good afternoon. My name is Herbert Milano, members of the Redevelopment Agency and city staff. It appears to me that the general public is unaware of the laws that exist in California, laws that are aimed to increase the level of transparency that we have in California. One of them is CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. The other one is the Brown Act, which allows us to request information from the city or a particular municipality or their local entity, and the other one is the Political Reform Act. All those 3 laws are there to help the public increase its level of confidence with regard to the actions of in a representative government. And when the public needs to corroborate or validate information to do an analysis of an environmental impact report, we need to avail ourselves of information. And the most typical way most people would think about accessing that information is to simply walk up to a department, let's say housing, and go out to the front desk and say, I would like to know if this information is available for me to look at or to read. And actually, the Brown Act does allow us to do that. During working hours, if it's 7:30 to 5, I believe that is the case, to request for information that is normally published and available, during those times. When that information is not available, then we avail ourselves of the California Records Act and do a report. Do a request for a report that may take 14 days or more to obtain. But we use that in order to get a better sense of whether the information that we receive from an EIR is valid or not valid, especially if we suspect that the information is not correct. Apparently, in the last 12 months, I made 24 requests. Well, that's about 2 per month, and that's not bad considering that I filed a lawsuit. It's a very small amount, I think, but all of them, if I were to list them, would show that they have to do with something fairly relevant with regard to information. And it is my belief that a lot of those requests would probably not even be necessary had some type of performance measure been available, as part of the general information on the state of the city. So I made requests with regard to what appeared to me rather unusual. For example, the amount of water use per dwelling per day. So if on an EIR I see a number that doesn't appear to be accurate, then I would do a California Records Act request from the Glendale Water and Power to see if those numbers or some other study has been there that allows me to corroborate that number. And I think it's a valid one. We have a crisis. You stated it was a crisis. And so if an environmental impact report doesn't state clearly how that is impacting, if it says no mitigating measures necessary, it doesn't make sense to me. So I do a California Records Act request so that I can then make my comments on that EIR and present it to see if I can get a proper and reasonable answer back. So that's just one example. And I try to be careful and judicious with the type of reports that I request, but usually they stem from a statement made during a city council session or during a redevelopment agency comment that was made to say, wait a second, this doesn't jive with my personal experience. And so I make a request to make sure that I'm able to at least speak intelligently or write intelligently about something. So I want to say this, that I am not, and I repeat this again, I'm not against development, and I'm not against high-rises, and I'm not against buildings that create a unique visual presentation for a city or identity. What I am concerned about is that those issues that do impact the neighborhood and the community are properly addressed. And those are legitimate concerns, whether there be traffic or water usage, right? Or whether the issue is, the impact on the additional population on the parks that it surrounded. And, but in no way do I intend to bring to you or create hurdles for you that are unnecessary. And it's not as if I just came into this thing, just last week or last month or last year. Is that I've been, pretty much after that transparency for a very long time. So it's now going on 6 years. And so when I do take those actions, I know that it takes effort and money and so forth, especially from your legal department here. And I want to make sure that you understand that if that information on performance measures, on water usage, for example, were available on the web, I probably would not have needed to ask for some of that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Astorian is our second speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Astorian. I am a proponent of the Downtown Specific Plan, and I will begin by reading an excerpt from a publication that was put out by Sierra Club and Urban Land Institute. America is not only growing, but also undergoing dramatic demographic changes. The traditional two-parent household with children is now less than the quarter of the population, 25% of the population, and getting proportionately smaller. Single-parent households, single-person households, empty nesters, and couples with children and couples without children make up the new majority of the American households, and they have quite different real estate needs. These groups are more likely to choose higher density housing in mixed density communities that offer vibrant neighborhoods over single family houses far from the community core. The Downtown Specific Plan that was adopted by this council and the council prior to it is seriously a paragon of smart growth. Smart growth, sensitive growth, and transformative growth. And I will elaborate on that in a second or two. Projects such as the Alexander, City Center 2, and hopefully the Verdugo Gardens. These are the outcomes of the Downtown Specific Plan. You see, gentlemen, Glendale is no longer as if it ever was, and I don't want to have getting emails for what I'm going to say. Glendale is no longer a bucolic podnock in the middle of nowhere. We are the third largest city in our county. We are the second or the third largest financial center in California. The policies that this city makes, in its wisdom, as policymakers, should reflect that, as it has in accepting and adopting the Downtown Specific Plan. There are people that have taken positions against the Downtown Specific Plan for various reasons. And some sort of a myth has been perpetuating all along. I think this is time for me to cover one or two of those issues. In fact, Mr. Milano, and I mean this with deference to Herb, just brought up the issue of the...
To Herb.
To Herb.
I said not Herb.
I thought you said Herb.
I'm sorry. And I mean this by deference. He just brought up the issue of the water usage, traffic, and also parks. And I'm going to just start speaking about a couple of those issues. Let's take, but before I even go there, it was interesting. I was watching the TPC broadcast, the traffic transportation and broadcast, and there was a member of this of the student board that made a remark that if folks have a problem with traffic around the Glendale High School, they should come to you as the city council and complain for the number of the apartment buildings and or the condominiums that you're approving in the downtown. With that, I'd like to put one myth to bed to begin with. Higher density development overburdens public schools and other public services and requires more infrastructure support systems. That's not true. The fact is that the nature of who lives in higher density housing, which is fewer families with children, puts less demand on schools and other public services. In fact, the number of school-age children, gentlemen, per 100 units of new housing, and I will quote this for you again from the Sierra Club publication, mid to high-rise apartments, 19 per 100, garden apartments, 21, owner-occupied single-family homes, 64. So, to stand in a public forum as an official of the city and claim that condominiums will burden the school system is absolutely untrue. I will go one step further. a project, a development such as City Center 2, is going to generate close to about $1.5 million for the Glendale school system. When you compare to the usage that it will create or the burdens that it will create, you will see that benefits far outweigh the impacts that it may have. And in fact, that's one of the problems that we've had. The people or the standalone one or two people that have questioned the downtown specific plan, they have continuously overemphasized its impacts while underestimating its benefits. I don't get much an opportunity to address this council. I would, if I would.
We're here every Tuesday.
Maybe then I should continue the rest for next time. I appreciate your time, though.
Talk about it in the joint meeting.
Yes, you can talk about it in the joint meeting, or at, I would also point out...
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Not the joint.
Not the joint, but the special meeting, pardon me. I just wanted to add, Mr. Astorian, through 2010, the projections are nationwide in urban settings. Families or households with no children, they expect to grow by about 16%. Non-family households to grow by 14%. And surprisingly, households with children 18 years of age or younger, they expect to grow through 2010 by a negative 3%. So, kind of interesting. All right, I have no other cards for oral communications, so I will close them. And Artie, if we can please pick up where we left off.
Well, is there any agency member or staff comments?
I see none.
Move to adjourn for development.
Second.
Thank you. We're adjourned. Excuse me.
And I would like to call to order the joint meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Glendale Redevelopment Agency for January 22nd, 2000.